This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
By popular demand, Place to Be Nation Wrestling returns to the Dirty South for Talk'n WCW, an episodic wrestler showcase designed to educate, evaluate, and entertain, with matches spanning the intimate stage of Techwood Studios to the heights of Space Mountain. Talk'n WCW presents the best, worst, and most surreal offerings from World Championship Wrestling. So cast your gaze to the Turnertron with hosts Jennifer Smith, Tim Capel, and Greg Phillips.
Place to Be Nation. Hi, welcome to Talk'n WCW. My name is Jennifer Smith. I'm here with the EVAD to my Dave Sullivan, Tim Capel. How you doing, Tim?
Yes. EVAD, Dave, Equalizer. We're going to equalize the competition here or something along those lines. Something like that. He would have said, yeah. Because I'm your good friend, the Equalizer, EVAD Sullivan. Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome. Sorry, just even all of this is just too much for me. I can't even.
He's dyslexic.
Also, there's Greg. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
Hello, one and all. And I have to make this known. I have gotten an important announcement from a good friend of the show. An M Buffer sent me this in the mail, and it says that the ultimate solution is going to crush the Megaforce with his powerful biceps. I, for one, cannot wait for this episode.
Outstanding.
We're hyped because it is Kevin Sullivan time. It's
Jenny's revenge is what it is.
This is your chance to become the Taskmistress.
Oh, I already am. Don't worry. I already am. So, okay. In my preparation for this episode, I watched a lot of Kevin Sullivan matches, and
what a thing to say.
Yes, and I stumbled across this amazing, which they weren't up for consideration because they were from a different promotion, but they were like some of his old stuff, and it's like best Kevin Sullivan matches on YouTube, and
was this the stuff from Florida Championship Wrestling?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Amazing. Like,
yes.
just, I can't. Like, I wish we could have chosen some of that stuff, but...
I know exactly what you mean.
But it really did help me in this journey in trying to appreciate him more, although I appreciate him a lot more than most people, I feel like. So, I really am curious to see what you guys thought about Kevin Sullivan at the end of this. Like, I will be so thrilled to maybe get you guys on my side a little bit, perhaps. Maybe.
I have to. I will try to answer that question. But I first want to ask Greg, have you seen any of this FCW stuff with Sullivan?
No. I've only seen all that I have seen is some of the promos of like when he had the what was it, Kevin Sullivan's not the Dark Order, that's different. Kevin Sullivan's Dark something, and anyway, I've seen some of the promo videos of that, like when he brings the missing link out of the ocean or whatever, and there's some interesting stuff in there, satanic gimmick and all that, and it was the early '80s where everybody thought that rock and roll was satanic. Satanic? What the hell kind of word was that? It was satanic. By God. And I'm going to tell you right now, But nonetheless, people thought it was a bad thing to be satanic, apparently. And anyway, so he was there and he did stuff. But I've not watched any of his matches. So from that era, I only grew up knowing Kevin Sullivan as the very small man who, for some reason, dudes 3 times his size would run in terror from, and he would do the double stomp.
It's because he's crazy.
Yeah,
just go ahead and get that out of the way.
He is, and he did the devil worship cult stuff really throughout his career, and
except when he was inexplicably when he was like a collegiate wrestler at the leader of the club.
Yes. Well, one of his allies in FCW was the actually Olympic wrestler Bob Roop, who was very, classically trained amateur and became professional wrestler, and was reinvented as Maha Singh, and had like half of his head shaved and the very 80s demonic face paint. And he would just kind of stand in the back shuffling while Sullivan cut these promos talking about, I have communed with Hamada Jin and tasted of the beetle root. It's just going on. And Gordon Soley, of all people, is at the desk like, oh my God.
And anyway, fans,
well,
strong words will be damaged.
Kevin Sullivan been banned from FCW for the 12th time this year.
And this was before he had communed with the Master many years later.
Yes. Yeah, not to be confused with the Master, not Habuda Jin. Now we've got, maybe they were the same person. Maybe it was
I think there's a chance of that.
Yeah, you know how like Mephisto in Marvel Comics is like the devil by many other names sort of things.
Right.
So, yeah, it could be one of those situations.
The dark side of Kevin Sullivan is a pathway to ability some consider to be unnatural. You know what's interesting about my Palpatine voice is sometimes it morphs into Cary Grant randomly.
Oh.
I noticed that at the very end there. Naturally. It's very weird. Anyway.
Kind of works, though. You, of course, got the introduction of Luna also. She was the little old lady reporter who was, what was her name?
What?
Trudy Hurd. Yeah, she's going to give an award to little skinny Kendall Windham for winning like Rookie of the Year. And that goes very badly, doesn't it, Jenny?
Sure does. Yes.
How bad was the year that Kendall Windham was the Rookie of the Year, by the way?
It's FCW. I guess their talent bench was maybe a little thin. Who knows? But yeah, lots of violence towards women back then, which I don't know is an unfortunate association with Kevin Sullivan. It's it seems like one of those ways that life hopefully didn't imitate art in his case, but I guess we will inevitably get into that.
Oh, Lord.
As I laugh uncomfortably.
Well, women seem to be drawn to him, regardless.
Women loved him.
That women did love him, and
Right.
I could see that he has some sort of spell casting ability. I think with the demonic.
He would go to seafood restaurants and put candles at the end of his wiener. So
Really?
and expose them. Yes. This according to a story on the award-winning Grilling JR podcast.
Forgot about that. It was at that great seafood place in Baltimore, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That they all rave about. Yeah, he put on, was it Ric Flair's robe?
Ric Flair's robe, yes.
Stuck a candle in his foreskin. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And came out and exposed himself to the table.
Oh, what are we doing?
If we have any listeners left, I think we should probably start this episode.
Let's be clear that virtually every wrestler from the 80s probably should have been arrested for a variety of sex-related crimes.
Yeah, that's a long list of Me Too movement lids about to explode right there. Oh, man. Jenny, I have to ask you, what is it about Kevin Sullivan that makes Kevin Sullivan a Jenny wrestler?
I think it's just the weirdness. I just and just like the way he talks, and he's so, oh God, I wish I could explain it. There was something about the Halloween Havoc 95, the promo that I saw of him, where he just looks like the weird little sidekick. And it was just,
And he was the leader.
Yes, I don't know. Fuck.
He's kind of looking down while looking up at the same time.
Yes,
His little
it's
beady
so
eyes.
fucking weird. It's so weird, and I mean, it would take me many years of therapy to understand why this is attractive to me. I don't know what it is, and I think it's just some sort of like, it's so different, and like he has this undefinable thing that I can't understand that is so much fun to watch for me. And I wish I had a better explanation, but I really don't, because I don't understand it. I just know what it is.
And I kind of love how he has such a mundane name. He's just Kevin Sullivan.
Kevin. Fucking Kevin, man.
Kevin. He's just a guy
it's like
named
the worst
Kevin,
name ever.
right? Yeah. And I mean, he's gone by different aliases and ring names. He's got the Taskmaster.
The Games
right?
Master.
The Games Master. Yeah, that's a good one. So I think it's weird that just his given name is kind of what he's rocked with for most of his career. and
I love that. That is so weird, and I love that. I don't know.
Yeah, playing such a weird character, and it's like, who is this guy? Well, that's Kevin Sullivan.
Kevin Sullivan looks like one of the like circus, like you took like a circus freak from like the 1920s and like blew him up.
Yes.
Somehow, like it's just a unique look for a person.
Very much is. He's got that fat fit thing going on.
Yes, he really does.
He's definitely not a fat guy at all. He's sort of barrel chested, if anything.
Right. He's built like an out of shape, in shape guy from the 50s.
Yes.
There you go.
And he's short, and he has a mullet, and
skull. In fact,
yeah, that's true.
He could almost be related to Hulk Hogan, like the hair structure, the facial hair growth. They could be parts of the same family tree. It's just one of them got better genetics,
One of them is Dave Sullivan instead of Hulk Hogan. So,
right, very true.
Yeah.
Although in the early '80s, he kind of looked like fat, fit guy Phil Collins. He had more hair.
Yes,
I can see that. They do. Now you mention it, Tim. There are some similarities between No Jacket Required era Phil Collins, and the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan.
I can feel it in the air tonight, Tim. I really can.
And you know what? An opinion like that, it probably isn't true. You'd be working against the odds there, but there's a chance.
There's
against all odds. Damn it! What a loser.
We got it still. Don't worry.
We'll get it right eventually. Okay, so I guess we should talk some matches here because we each chose a match, and this was actually sort of the easiest one for me. I often find this to be a very difficult process just because you have so many options and you're like, do I go this? Do I go that? No, we've done too many matches from that year, and that match is too well known. This match isn't good enough. This match isn't going to make for a good discussion. And like, I kind of knew right away going into this, like I had 3 matches off the top of my head that I was like, Greg and Jenny could each pick one of these and I'll still have something I can go with here. And I kind of like the way things worked out. We've got some good representation of, I will say, 90s WCW Kevin Sullivan. Mm-hmm. So, hey, we could do a Kevin Sullivan part 2. I think I mean, that option is on the table. If we're going to threaten you with a Sting part 2, then I guess you can hold Kevin Sullivan.
How many times did Kevin Sullivan wrestle Chris Benoit? No.
Well,
I'll have to go to that for my pool here.
See,
3 times.
And it's interesting because usually with me on these shows, I'm like, I will do some research and watch, several things, but it's usually pretty easy for me to settle on something. And I debated so many things. The more I kept watching, the more I kept getting confused as to what to choose. And I'm like, fuck. I'm watching this Mr. T match and I like it. I'm watching this Dave Sullivan match and I like it. I'm watching this fucking hard body, whatever the fuck.
Hard body
Harrison. That was on my
list. At Club La
list.
Vila, I'm like, I fucking like this match too. God damn it. I cannot decide on these matches.
I have no idea why Hard Body never got his run as Stang that he wanted. But
well, isn't it because of his finishing maneuver that was so complex to perform? He often botched it. He did some kind of. Am I thinking of Hard Body Harrison or someone else? I hope this is not a racist error on my part. But
you're not thinking about Hard Work Bobby Walker.
I was just about to say I might be thinking of Hard Work Bobby Walker, but I'm reasonably sure it's Hard Body Harrison. So he would do like the Undertaker top rope walk and lariat, but his was a little bit more ambitious, shall we say, and usually on live television he would fuck it up. And so when there was a racial discrimination lawsuit, class action lawsuit filed against WCW in the 90s, he was part of that class, and WCW's defense for not booking him more often on Nitro to give him his program with Stang was that he was so unreliable and wouldn't adjust his style or his signature maneuver for television, which is very flimsy.
And now he is currently serving life in prison.
Right.
So, it's truly an uplifting story.
Because he was like wasn't it kind of an R. Kelly situation with him?
Oh, yeah. He was, says here, he was sentenced to life in prison for his part in a sex trafficking and forced labor ring.
Oh, Jesus.
His convictions include peonage, which I don't even know what that is, forced labor, human trafficking, sex trafficking, witness tampering, criminal conspiracy, and obstruction of justice.
Wow.
Yikes.
You can read more about him in Chris Jericho's first book.
Yeah, that's right. I remember hearing about all that because that class action lawsuit was successful. So he got a nice chunk of change out of that. It's a shame he did not conduct his life differently. It seems coming out of that. So anyway, we're talking.
Not a good man.
Yeah, we're talking Hard Body Harrison here. No, our first match. So going chronologically, this would have been chosen by you, Jenny.
Yes.
And I think we've had quite the role reversal, you and I, on this episode. What did you choose?
I chose Slamboree 1994, Cactus Jack, and Kevin Sullivan versus the Nasty Boys in a match for the tag title belts. So, yeah, I think this might be a little bit of my ECW love coming out with the Cactus Jack and the Hardy Boys, the Nasty Boys.
Whoa.
And Kevin. I know them from ECW, so.
And this show is in the city of brotherly love.
It is.
Philadelphia street fight, I believe.
Philadelphia Broad Street.
Broad Street bully match.
Yes.
There we go.
Very specific.
And that's because it's refereed by Sami Zayn's dad, from what I could gather.
Sami Zayn's dad, Dave Schultz.
There we go.
Not to be confused with Dr. D. David Schultz, the old wrestler from the WWF, which is what confused me at first when the match started.
Me too.
I was like, who's this guy in a hockey uniform?
So this is a guy from the Philadelphia Flyers, and it was around the 20th anniversary of them winning their first NHL championship. No one cares.
Right.
he gives a very fast, I don't know how else to describe it, fast interview before the match just to establish he will be officiating. So, all right, we're off to the races.
We are. Our main man, Kevin Sullivan, comes out in his Phillies gear, which I kind of enjoyed, with Cactus, and then the Nasty Boys looking nasty, as they usually do. Just ECW vibes all over this match from the beginning. It's an immediate street fight, just like from the beginning. They just go at each other. They're in the crowd. They're using trash cans. They're using crutches. They're using cameras, tables. It's just nonstop. A total fucking melee. Like, there's no rules. And that's one of the things about this match is that this ref gives two fucks, really. Like, he like barely follows them around when they're fighting in the crowd. He's just like kind of wandering around, but nobody's going for a pinfall, so that's good. So they're just literally beating the shit out of each other. Everybody. They do good with the matchups, like they do good on trading partners, beating on each other. Kevin Sullivan gets choked with a mic at one point with a little cord to the mic. There's a fire extinguisher used eventually. Kevin Sullivan gets this amazing pile driver on the ramp.
Oh, yes.
It looks so sick. I was like, yes. And that's like right in the beginning, too.
Yeah. Cactus does that elbow outside the
amazing elbow
from the turnbuckle outside the ring that he often did, and just flattens a trash can.
His poor hips.
Yes. Oh my God. This trash can is just demolished. You know, it's just flattened really by all of the head shots, the back shots, Cactus falling on it. It's insane. Like, it's wonderful. And
the use of tables in 1994 WCW, either major promotion. I mean, I know ECW, it's kind of old hat, but I mean, that had not become an established mainstream trope at all.
Cactus Jack, one of my favorite spots of that year. He did it at Spring Stampede too, but Cactus Jack suplexing the table onto a dude is always going to be one of my favorite moves in wrestling. I don't know why nobody does that now. They awesome.
Need to do that now. Yes.
Great visual.
The blood, of course. I think Cactus is the only one who bleeds. I didn't see any other blood.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a blade job. I'm pretty sure.
He talked
about. Yeah, he talked about it in his book, his amazing book, Have a Nice Day, the first book. He talks about this match. He talks about other matches. He very rarely actually bladed. He usually did have hard-way blood. And if you watch some of the shots that Sags gives him in this match, it's no surprise why he would be bleeding.
Jesse and Tony are losing their shit over this match.
Yep. I love it.
Jesse at one point says, "Wonder what Luthez thought of that." Which popped me because of ECW reasons that I just went through in ECW, Shane Douglas calling back to Luthez. So it's just that's part of the reason why I picked this match, is because I have such an appreciation now for this style and the insanity of it and how wonderful it was. And it's like they're all getting their shit in, and they're all there's no intensity really to it. There's no psychology to it. It's just real, just nasty. It's just dirty.
And you know what? The best part of it is they're just as nasty as they want to be.
Yes, they are. They all are. And Kevin is he's relentless. He does not stop. He is, he's taking his bumps, he's doing his, thing, and he just keeps getting up to do more and more shit. And it's just, I could just watch it forever. I thought he was fantastic in this. Everybody was, really.
Well, and for this match to be taking place on this show, It's in Philadelphia. So, of course, you've got the ECW influence, which they are very much playing up and leaning into and reading the room, right? They know this is a pretty ECW kind of smart mark kind of crowd, and they don't want to put on just a shitty, like, old school, boring ass what this was sort of billed as, which was a Legends reunion here at Slamboree 1994. Where they're bringing out basically all these old farts.
Yes.
The poster for the show. The poster for the show has Ric Flair, Ray Stevens, Vader, and Vern Gagne on it.
Right.
So it's like, what?
And it's hilarious because, of course, you got the Lou Thesz callback, right? And Lou Thesz is actually there, was introduced at the beginning of the show.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah, looking very, I don't know, distant.
Old.
I'm trying not to be too disrespectful here, but it was just like let's just say the Hall of Fame that they're trying to present this as, it kind of is not working. So you've got these vignettes just spotlighting these guys and their accomplishments, and some of them will actually get mic time. Of course, Terry Funk is among them, and being the guy from ECW who's been running roughshod over Philadelphia, and the crowd is in love with him. He goes completely bonkers with his, not only in his match, but in his promo as well. And it's just this crazy atmosphere that's created by the tension between just that old school and new school philosophy here. And you get this match that just pretty much puts the crowd over the top. Security looks absolutely panicked throughout this match.
Yes.
I don't know if they were not given it enough of a heads up or just weren't sure what to expect, but they are scurrying. And you look at some of them and they look very flushed in the face. So that was something I took away, and it really popped me. And I had not noticed before. I've seen this match before, and I absolutely love it every time I see it. But that was something I didn't notice. And this is not a long match by any means. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's nonstop action. And I like that it's sort of a continuation on another pretty wild brawl that took place at Spring Stampede, also in 94. That was Cactus and Max Payne against the Nasty Boys. So Max Payne, I don't know what was going on with him. He makes an appearance at the end to help out his team. But we've got Kevin Sullivan subbed in. So there you have it. Aren't we fortunate for that we could get this Kevin Sullivan match on the offering. So good stuff. What else? The Nasty Boys, to me, have always been that team that they always seem like, Greg, maybe you'll relate to this, like fake hardcore guys, where they had this reputation for being these brawlers, they leave it all out there, and you never know what you're going to expect from them. Oh my God, they're so crazy. And really, they just kind of do garbage matches, and it feels very gimmicked, right? For what their characters are and what their reputation was supposed to be, you'd figure these guys had like a long run in ECW doing barbed wire matches or death matches or whatever, and they never really did. They were just that very worked hardcore style. Well,
and they really needed the right opponents to bring them to that level, really. Yeah, and they get that here. This is where you see, okay, the Nasty Boys are really living up to the billing here in a way that they normally did not. I've never been a big fan of them. Again, like exactly as you said, they need the right opponents, and man, they they definitely worked up to what Cactus and Sullivan were bringing.
That's all I'll say for them.
Really, this whole year for the Nasty Boys was kind of eye-opening for me because I actually liked the Nasty Boys when I was a kid, but not as a serious team. I liked them as comedy guys. Mm-hmm. I thought the pit at age 8, I thought the pit stop was the height of wrestling comedy. Pity City, if you will.
Pity City.
See, they're shoving their opponent's face into their armpit, and it's funny because it stinks there, presumably. So I thought this was wonderful, and they were just funny guys. They were like, you can't take them seriously, but they're funny. However, when they were in certain situations against the Steiner brothers where they're legitimately fighting for their lives because these guys are maniacs, or against anybody that is teaming with Cactus Jack, suddenly the Nasty Boys are pretty damn cool, and they're forced to bring up the level of violence. There's no risk of anybody cheering them against Cactus Jack because he's just the coolest dude in the room. But it's a fight. It feels like a fight, and at times, I think less so here than at Stampede. I actually prefer the Spring Stampede match. I think it's a better match than this one. This one's good though. But in the Spring Stampede match especially, there are moments in it where it feels like the Nasty Boys are almost taking liberties with Cactus in terms of. I think you know the spot I'm talking about when Sags hits Cactus Jack with the shovel at the end of that match.
Yeah,
he even wrote about it in his book that he was not happy about that because it was just a horrendous, unnecessary thing. But then in this match, it feels a little bit more controlled than that, which is weird to say about a wild, crazy brawl. But it's fun nonetheless. Everybody's laying everything in. It looks like they're legitimately fighting each other. The table spot is really good here. Cactus takes most of the big bumps in this match, but Knobs takes some too, to his credit. And they're tearing into each other all across the arena. The Broad Street element was a little lost on me because I don't understand the history of the Philadelphia Flyers that much, but nonetheless, the finish maybe wasn't the best in the world. I don't know if you guys would agree with that. I didn't love the. Yeah. I didn't love the lightning fast 3 count at the end.
Yeah, it was super fast.
I felt like it took away a little bit of the shine from Cactus after his months-long battle with the Nasties and Kevin Sullivan as well. But overall, the faces got their comeuppance on the heels. What's funny is, so the Broad Street Bully guy, Schultz, he gets so mad at Jerry Sags, I believe it is, and he hits him with his stick or whatever and beats him down and kicks him even after the pinfall. But then Sags just gets up and beats up Cactus Jack, and then Dave Schultz is like, screw it, and he leaves.
Just stands there.
He just waves it off.
And then
he Seinfeld gifts out of it.
And so then you get the big brawl between the two teams after. Max Payne comes out and has a great guitar shot on one of the Nasties, and then Knobs is backing his way up the aisle, and then Evad comes out and beats him up with his crutch. And so it's a good feel good moment. The Nasties finally get their asses kicked by somebody. They would end up being baby faces a couple months later, oddly enough. And so it's a good match. It was an entertaining match on a show, believe it or not, that I have never seen. I have never watched Slamboree 94.
You should definitely check it out just for the constant tonal whiplash throughout that entire show.
So I have seen, I don't believe that I had ever seen this match. I may have seen it when I was a kid, but I've forgotten about it. I have seen one match from this show, and that was Sting versus Vader in the main event. But I've never seen the rest of this card. And it was interesting. I was surprised, by the way, folks, to hear Jesse on commentary, because I thought that once Bobby came on board that Jesse was pretty much done with commentary on the major shows. So that was a surprise for me.
I don't want to say the wrong thing and say that this was his last show, but it's got to be one of his last. But even at Stampede, he was doing backstage interviews predominantly. But it was interesting to hear him. And I want to pose one thing that could have made this match even better than it was, and it's a damn good match. What if Dusty had been on commentary?
Oh, yes.
Man, yep.
Would he not have been in his element?
Yes.
Where his title ass.
Tony shows a little bit of his geek side when one of the guys grabs the garbage can lid and he says he looks like Captain America.
Yeah.
And Jesse kind of no-sells that. It's like, quit being a nerd, Shivani.
Captain America, Shivani. At least he's not Captain Japan, where Mazda is made.
So, Greg, also on this card, you had that wild match, right? You had your main event of Sting Vader, which you know what you're going to get with a Sting Vader match, pretty much. Larry Zbyszko versus Lord Steven Regal.
Well,
I've never felt more like conflicted on a match with Larry Zbyszko and Steven Regal.
Yeah.
I one of my secrets as a 10-year-old kid, I loved that feud. I don't know why I loved it, but I loved it.
Huh.
Steven Regal is amazing.
How could anyone buy into Larry Zbyszko at age 10? But I did at that time.
Yeah, I don't get it. I will never understand Larry Zbyszko.
Yeah, well, he's such a great martial artist. So
and a golfer.
Yes.
And he'll tell you all about the sleazeballs in the New World Order or the New World
Order. Yes. A lame ass. Meanwhile, Terry Funk versus 1994 Tully Blanchard.
What the fuck?
Uh-huh. Yep, that's in your undercard.
Tell me Terry Funk beats that ass.
Yeah, he pretty much beats that ass.
All right.
I was Tully in 94. Tully's one of my faves. But I've never seen him in 1994, and I dread it.
1994 Tully Blanchard had some fire to him. I'll say that.
Really?
Believe it or not. Yeah, it's not a great match, but it's kind of worth seeing just because you're like, what? Tully Blanchard in the 90s? So, yep. And how about this? Steve Austin versus Johnny B. Bad.
Hell yeah.
U.S. Heavyweight Championship. I mean, there's a lot. Again, up and down this card, it's quite diverse as WCW pay-per-view cards typically are, but given that element of it being in Philly and for some reason trying to do the old fart reunion here at the same time.
Don't forget Dustin Rhodes versus Bunkhouse Buck.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. I've never actually seen. I believe this was their, the blow off to their singles feud, and then of course it transitions into the Stud Stable, and then you get the Arn Anderson and the Jello pudding pops and all that.
Well, this was the Jello pudding pops and the bull rope match is what this was. So, yeah. Interesting show that I would recommend to anyone who has a familiarity with WCW, but maybe hasn't looked at that sort of bizarre early to mid-90s period pre-Hogan. But anyway, we're talking Kevin Sullivan, and we're moving on to... Oh,
yeah.
Do we want to do...
Let's be honest, guys. The other two matches we're talking about tonight don't matter. This is what it's all about. This is the main event. This is the coup de grace, if you will.
All right. Do we want to go ahead and get into it? It almost feels like, all right, let's do it. All right. So this was chosen by me. This is the role reversal I was speaking of. It is from March 24th, 1996 in the Tupelo Coliseum, Tupelo, Mississippi. It is from Uncensored of that year. Jenny, you're a big fan of the Uncensoreds in WCW lore. So following up from your favorite show, Uncensored 95, we have the infamous Doomsday Cage match. This is the alliance to end Hulkamania. We have, deep breath, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage.
As the Mega Force.
The Mega Force. Is this what we're calling them, right?
That's what Michael Buffer refers to them as during the introductions.
Michael Buffer is always right.
Yes, as we know. Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage versus Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Ming, the Barbarian, Z-Gangsta, the Ultimate Solution, Lex Luger, the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah. All in this...
And keep in mind, not only do you have this gigantic list of heels that have to make entrances, you have to have this giant list of heels making their entrances with Michael Buffer introducing them. So it lasts an eternity. The master of the figure four leg lock. The master of the spine buster. the master of staring menacingly.
And then two of the guys don't even come out yet. So
no, they do not. Yeah,
I'm like, where's the rest of these guys? This doesn't make sense.
They get introduced, they never appear because Michael Buffer is like, he gives that long introduction about the ultimate solution. It's like, he promises to crush the Megaforce with his powerful biceps. The ultimate solution.
Who was evidently called the final solution at first. Until they got a lot of complaints at Turner headquarters.
I bet.
Had to change that one.
He ended up, he would go on in the year following this to play Bane in a major motion picture.
That's right. This is the one and only Jeep Swenson here playing the ultimate solution. Yeah, our original Bane in Batman and Robin.
Really?
Yeah. See, we're dropping knowledge tonight.
Wow.
And then we got Zeus, who Hulk Hogan notably feuded with in the aftermath of the film No Holds Barred. God almighty.
Yeah.
The character of Zeus.
I mean, you can call him Zeus, but I'm always going to know him as Debo, so that's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting because it's the only feud in wrestling I've ever seen that I can remember anyway, that the premise was that the events of a movie actually happened. and then he feuds with Hogan. Anyway, so he's been gone for years, but he's back now. But he can't be Zeus because that's copyrighted. So now he is Z Gangsta.
Gangsta.
Which creates a great line of dialogue, guys, between Bobby and Dusty, where Dusty goes, "What's gonna happen when you get the gangsta out here?" and then Bobby goes, "That's Z Gangster," and he goes, "That's what I said, baby." And he goes, "Oh, you said the gangster." And for the rest of the match, then you've got Tony, who's referring to him as Z Gangster.
Yes.
Where is Z Gangster?
Where is Z Gangster? He is the multimedia crossover sensation of No Holds Barred. I love it. So it's sort of like Zeus crossed with Debo in a way.
To get
Z Gangster.
The joy of No Holds
I wonder
Barred.
if that's what they were thinking, actually.
Can we talk about this cage? This cage is an engineering marvel.
I love this. And
it is amazing.
I just want to point out that people say that this is the Tower of Doom cage from Great American Bash 88. It is not. While the concept is similar, structurally, this is different. This is a cubicle structure. So you've got a regular cage at the base, and then two kind of war games style cages stacked on top. So you really do have three cages. It's not just a cage with a little cage on top of it and people on the roof with that fucking death trap that was the 88 Great American Bash war game situation.
Klondike Bill had his hands full with this.
Yeah, and this thing looks like it's about 50 feet tall.
It does.
It really does.
Ginormous.
It looks like Nakatomi Plaza or whatever. So I don't know. So you got this gigantic steel structure. You've got approximately 150 wrestlers against two.
Yes.
In this match.
Yes.
The two being Hulk Hogan and Randy.
You've also got scaffolding running up the side for, I guess, ease of access to the various compartments. Makes sense. This also houses the various managers for the heels who are
at different stages. Yes.
Yeah, at different stages, who are basically portraying cheerleaders. And this whole thing, it's just geometry running wild. I'm having a hard time.
How much did this cost to build?
It depends on what Klondike Bill's hourly rate was. I think they just put him to work and said, go to it.
They just gave him some sundry items and told him to go about his business.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Maybe can you imagine if Klondike Bill had to oversee the construction of this thing?
100% he did. What are you talking about?
There's no doubt that he did. Yes,
he did.
But he might have had some distractions along the way with various underwear-related items.
Well,
but
sure. But okay, I have some questions. Number one, what is Arn Anderson wearing? in this match.
I believe he is wearing the same black jumpsuit that he wore a couple years prior, when he was the mystery man that attacked Hulk Hogan at Clash of the Champions.
Okay.
Or was it Halloween Havoc? I can't remember.
Yeah, at Clash. You're right. I think it is that same sort of JCPenney sweater.
Now, why is he wearing it?
Sweatpants.
It does.
But also, how did they get Arn Anderson on the top floor of this cage? Because from what I've learned about him, he hates heights and he's very scared of heights.
Oh, and it's obvious when you watch
it is,
because they are everyone involved in this is absolutely terrified of the cage collapsing.
Yes,
which it looks like it's going to do. By the way,
because there's no floor on that top one. You're just walking on the chain link or whatever. It's like there's no support. All their footsteps just give. Like everything.
It reminds you. Does it not remind you? And Jenny, forgive me if you haven't seen this match. Does it not remind you of in the Undertaker and Mankind Hell in a Cell match when they're walking across the roof of that cave and you can just see it like gradually caving in? It's like this is going to collapse at any moment. That's what it reminded me of watching Arn walk on it, because it's like, I don't blame him for being scared. I'd have been scared to death too. Notice Flair doesn't take any of his signature bumps on it.
No.
By the way, there's so much about this match that makes absolutely no sense at all. And the first thing that makes no sense to me is, okay, if you're laying out all these heels, you got Ming and the Barbarian, and you've got the Ultimate Solution and Z Gangsta and Kevin Sullivan and Lex Luger and Arn and Rick. I would think that if you're laying this out like a comic book or like a video game or a movie, Ric Flair would be like the end boss.
On the bottom, yeah.
He would be on the very bottom waiting on you to get down. Let all the other guys do his dirty work. Instead...
Or at worst, a mid-level boss.
Yes. Not the very first cage that you go to is him and Arn. Being in the Barbarian are your intermediaries? Really?
So it's like... You start out with these fucking loser jobbers, Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. This is how we're going to do it, really? And I guess we should try to lay out how this thing is supposed to work, which is you have your heels scattered throughout each cage, and you start at the top and have to work your way down, do Hogan and Savage. So start off with Rick and Arn Anderson at the top, and then you don't actually have to beat your opponents in any given tier. You can just escape, which is possible via trap door. Okay, so there's a trap door in each cage. Fine, you descend into the next level. And you win the whole thing ultimately by question mark.
Yes.
It's not escape. You can leave the cage, because they do at one point for an extended period. Get back in the cage
into the regular wrestling ring.
Right. Why was there a regular wrestling ring? I did not. I mean, I know why, because the rest of the show, but like, why not just stay in the fucking cage, you know? Because there was a ring at the bottom of the cage. So just
why the hell would they ever go back to the cage?
Why?
Once they leave it.
We don't know. And just think, logistically, you've got a regular wrestling ring with the whole ramp set up and everything, like any other show. And then you've got this enormous structure kind of off to the side of the stage, and it's got this bizarre lighting. It's lit like a bowling alley just before they do the cosmic bowling thing.
It's all blue.
Yeah, it's all blue and pink. And again, it's in this weird part of the arena. No one in this arena can see a goddamn thing. There's no way. You can barely see it on the network as it is in HD. So not in HD, but
and surrounded by scaffolding too on a lot of sides.
Yeah. So this is just a mess on many levels. we get past Flair and Anderson, and then in that sort of middle structure, it's Ming.
In that top cage,
Uh-huh.
they basically just have a regular wrestling match, just very low impact with no bumps.
Yes.
So they lay around in a figure four for a while. They go through their chokes and their eye rakes and all that stuff, and the comeback and all.
Yeah.
Chops. Got to get a few chops.
You know, it's just and nobody can do anything because they're just terrified of the cage collapse.
But they do a pretty good job. Like, it looks pretty good for what they're doing. Like, Hogan is actually doing all right on this.
Arn does I will say this, I love Arn. Arn does the worst figure four in this match that you'll ever see in your life.
So bad.
Can you imagine if Arn did a spine buster and they just crashed the
I know, I was thinking that. I was thinking like, oh God, don't do the spine buster. Even though this happened in 96 and I know no one perished.
It would be bad in this though. Like, I mean, let's face it, Mick Foley, for anyone to plummet from that height, probably the best person it could have happened to is Mick Foley. I hate
probably
to say
so.
But if it's Arn Anderson and Hulk Hogan plummeting from this Nakatomi Plaza-like structure, it would end very badly. Okay, so middle section, we've got Ming, the Barbarian, Luger, and Kevin Sullivan. Well, this is where the faces get a little bit crafty, and they lock Ming and Barbarian in one like partition. Again, we're going back to geometry here, where there's this vertical partition with a door in the middle of
the second level.
Second level, yeah. So, God, what a...
And keep in mind, this... God, I'm not going to... Never mind. I was about to insult the fine folks of Tupelo, Mississippi.
How dare you?
I'll go ahead and say it. This was taking place in front of a crowd in Tupelo, Mississippi. So I'm sure they weren't following along very well with...
Yeah, they didn't get past remedial geometry. So,
but who was enjoying this match? Dusty Rhodes was enjoying this match.
This is true.
Dusty and Bobby both multiple times say this is the greatest thing they've ever seen in their life.
They loved it. And I kind of agree. Like, I'm with Dusty. I'm always with Dusty, but he's like, go lay on a chain link fence and see how that feels, And
then Bobby says, yeah, and put them in a figure four while you're doing it. Yeah. Put your neighbor in a figure four while you're doing it. He goes, I'm not saying that, Bobby. I'm not saying that. But yeah, so also when Hogan goes to lock the door to close it, if you watch, it doesn't work the first time because Ming pulls on it and it opens. So Hogan has to overpower both Ming and the Barbarian who are trying to open the door in order to lock it.
So effectively now the Faces of Fear are cut off and out of the match. This is when they basically make their escape from the structure entirely. So Hogan goes down like that scaffolding along the side with Sullivan, and Savage and Luger are meanwhile doing their thing. We get a split screen. This makes its way ringside, actually properly ringside, we should stress. Z Gangsta and the Ultimate Solution then make their presence felt at last. We do some more rudimentary brawling, end up back in the cage. It's like, what are we doing? What's the object now at this point? How does the match even end? Well, now we get a great run-in. It's the booty meat butcher man with no name or no face running in to give Hogan and Savage frying pans. Frying pans,
Frying
you guys.
Pans. See, that's more at home in the ECW match that we watched previously.
And keep in mind, after they have now Hogan and Savage are locked in this hellacious structure, supposedly with like 9 of the most or 8 of the most vicious heels in all of wrestling, bad guys that have been tearing them apart for months. They finally escape the cage, make their way to the ring with just 2 of them. They've gotten it down to 2-on-2 against Sullivan and Luger. Mm-hmm. And not once do they attempt to pin them.
No.
Not once do they attempt to end the match in any conceivable way. Instead, they go back to the cage and then back to the ring, and then they get dragged back to the cage by aforementioned Solution and Gangsta. So, and then you've got Mr. Man who comes in with the frying pans, and he does his thing and they go to town on these heels, and then I'll let you pick it up from there, Tim.
Well, I'm just thinking if this was a 2004 WWE match, instead of frying pans, he would have given them typewriters to hit the heels with. Can you imagine?
See,
that was a bad joke. But
only I like this match. It's ridiculous and chaotic and makes no sense. So of course I like it, but I think that we lose a little bit of the Kevin Sullivan part of this because there's so many people in this match. But I am glad that you picked it because he does get some good one-on-one time with Hogan in the shoot ring, not the bullshit cage ring. And he does his thing. So he did get some good shine in this.
Which is
I would question whether it's good, but
it's good for what we're doing.
He throws some open-handed slaps to Hogan's chest, which are ignored, and Hogan punches him 150 times.
Well, he gets a low blow, so that's
he
good.
does. He hits him in the family jewels.
Sure does.
I don't know if is that still a thing people say. I don't know, but nonetheless, he does it.
It's weird to me that we never got a one-on-one Hogan-Sullivan match. As lopsided, as one-sided as it would have been, it just seems like something they would have run with.
Didn't they do that as the stipulation at Fall Brawl 95 that if Hogan's team wins, he gets 5 minutes with Sullivan? And that, I don't know that it even happened.
I don't think it really even, or they kind of waved it off, or something happened where they kind of bait and switched you a little bit.
This is a little bit off topic to this match in particular, but I think the reason it probably never happened is probably for the reason that I've always struggled with Kevin Sullivan, which is appropriate for this episode, because I never once as a child, not at any point in this whole ridiculous Dungeon of Doom storyline that took 2.5 years, never once did I buy that Kevin Sullivan could beat Hulk Hogan in any, even with help. I was like, he is so outmatched by Hulk. I watched Hulk Hogan beat Andre the Giant. I'm not going to buy Kevin Sullivan, who's 4'1" and looks and has a double stomp as his finisher. I was like,
but he's crazy, so I feel like that adds to it.
Should count for something. Yeah,
it's true. He is legally insane. That's true.
Yes.
We have to talk about the finish here.
Yes.
Which comes when Lex Luger goes to hit Randy Savage with, I guess, they don't call it that, but is this supposed to be a coal miner's glove?
A loaded glove, yeah.
A loaded glove.
Yeah.
Savage ducks out of the way.
Fucking Luger. God damn.
Luger stops himself.
So bad.
Stops himself from inadvertently hitting Flair, and then hits him anyway.
Just goddamn. Lex can't do shit right. He fucking sucks.
But it gets better. It gets better because Hogan then goes, "Come on, brother, we gotta go." So they're getting out of the cage now, and then I guess remember that they need to actually pin
somebody. Yeah.
We guess. I mean, they seem to be in the dark as well as to how to win this thing. Savage jumps back in the ring and pins Flair.
Oh,
in a match with Z Gangsta, the Ultimate Solution, neither of whom would make any more appearances for the company. Ming and the Barbarian, and even Arn Anderson, and even Kevin Sullivan, Ric Flair takes the pin. How does anyone in this match have any credibility left? They just got beaten by two men in a 3-stage cage in a 9-on-1 scenario. Hulk Hogan, Hogan gets a lot of crap for all of his booking of his character, and most of the time I think, that's not fair. He was the biggest star, whatever. This is the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened in wrestling.
Yes. Yes.
This is just outlandishly stupid.
I love it.
That's what I picked.
This is like something you would have seen in the WWE in 2008 with John Cena. Is it not like where the entire roster just lines up to get attitude adjusted or whatever?
Right.
And that's what this felt like. It's like, Jesus, this is Ric Flair. He's your world champion.
It's funny you bring that up because do you remember when Cena and Orton had that tag match against like all the heels?
Yep, the entire Raw roster. Yep.
Yeah, and it was just basically a mess of attitude adjustments and RKOs, and it was kind of awesome.
It was. Yeah, that's fair.
And that's the thing about this match. This, even though it is Hogan and Savage winning a match with 4-on-1 odds, hysterical, right? It's preposterous. I feel like there is still too much of an effort to protect the heels here, and hear me out. I just thought that the heroes, our heroes in this match, were made to look very cheap by cheating to gain that advantage over Flair and Anderson, right? They threw the powder in their faces to escape rather than really actually beat them in any meaningful way. And then with Ming and Barbarian, of course, as we described, they're locking them on the other side of the cage, preventing them from even participating in the match. And then as it goes on, they get this outside interference and ultimately win the whole thing because the heels figuratively step on a banana peel. And I guess it's all done in an effort to make this more believable and not
artificially stretch the match out.
Well, that too. And just to not kill the heat of half your entire heel roster.
But there's you're right though, because there's no way to not do that. So you might as well just go all in on it. Like
you
if
might
you're gonna do it.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it, and have Hogan slam Ultimate Solution and have Savage drop the big elbow, which he doesn't do once in the match, by the way, on Z Gangsta or whatever. And they're killing their heels out of the gate with this stupid match anyway. So why not go all in with it?
Yep. Exactly. For a match that goes entirely too far, it still doesn't go far enough for me.
Which this is a show full of matches that go too long, by the way, because there's a match before this that I didn't watch tonight, but I watched it in the past, featuring four guys that I love as performers, the Road Warriors against Sting and Booker T, and it feels like it will never end. It starts
that's like
out
a 30-minute match.
Yeah, and it starts out, it's like, damn, this is good. And then you keep watching, it's like, boy, they're really taking their time with this one. And then it goes eternity. And then you'll think, oh gosh, well that's over with now. Surely there won't be a match that goes even longer. And then there is, and it's just and hey, credit to Hogan and Savage for their cardio.
Because that's true.
Geez, almighty, man. They go through the same routine about 400 times in this match, it feels like. They're back and forth. They're running across this aisle. They're going up and down this doomsday cage. They've got Jimmy Hart yelling at them the whole time, laughing like a hyena. It's just it's a crazy match. It's truly, in many ways, some could argue. I take offense to it when people say this because I think WCW, as we've talked about on the show, is many great things as well. But in many ways, is this not the most, quote, WCW match of all time?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it really is. It's
convoluted, weird rules that aren't fully explained to even the wrestlers themselves. Ric Flair losing. I mean, it's just
Kevin Sullivan is in there.
Kevin Sullivan's
existence, yes, in this match. He, in many ways, this is the culmination of his 2-year task to destroy Hulkamania.
Right.
And even this alliance is not but what cost the alliance the match is Brian Pillman never showed up.
Well, that's true. They talked about that a little bit. Yeah.
If he showed up, we have to assume the alliance to end Hulkamania would have succeeded.
Well, he respected.
Yeah, they just needed
Booker
one
Man too
more
much
guy for sure, because there wasn't enough guys there.
Right. And the other thing about this match is, for Hulkamania to still be alive, I will admit, there are a few points where Hogan chants break out in this match. But for the most part, that crowd is just dead silent for all this.
Yep.
They just don't care. And so in many ways, Tupelo, Mississippi may have actually ended up killing Hulkamania, because the next time after the show that we see him, I believe, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, is when he drops the big leg on Macho
yes.
and creates the New World Organization of Wrestling, brother.
Yeah, I mean, this match, and it's another very WCW thing where it's like this faux epic, right? Where it's just built up as the biggest thing ever, and it's just this bunch of cartoon nonsense. You know, it wants to be something like Hogan Warrior from the WWF, and it's just not. It's just a WCW match, and it's like that's so much of that early Hogan era. That's the story of WCW, and this was drawing a line under that transition we saw through 1994, and then the entirety of 95, which is just Hogan mania running wild, nonstop, crazy, those pay-per-views. And here, it's like as much praise as we have heaped on 1996 WCW, we kind of still had to get through some nonsense. And don't get me wrong, I loved it. I picked the match for a reason, but it's also kind of like not my 96 WCW. And we're now saying, all right, done with that. We're the Hogan experiment, while it's not over, we're not having another 1995 here. Like, Hogan's going to go off, do his thing. We'll bring him back, figure out something else. But, yeah, this is going to be the end of that whole Dungeon of Doom, Hulkamania, it's not hot thing for quite a while.
Hey, you know how we like to retroactively assign a lot of credit to WCW for things that they probably didn't think out in advance, like Eric Bischoff joining the NWO, and we're like, well, if you follow the pieces, really it makes sense from the beginning of the storyline that Bischoff's with him. And and similarly, I think you can trace back to this. I think the Alliance, it's kind of like one of those like Joker at the end of the Dark Knight things where did the Alliance to end Hulkamania really lose? Because I think the Alliance to end Hulkamania ended up ending Hulkamania by proxy.
Wow.
Because of what happens in the crowd, and when Hulk Hogan comes back, he destroys Hulkamania himself. But maybe that was the plan all along.
Ooh.
Oh my God, I love this thing.
That's very Kevin Sullivan.
Yes, the Taskmaster doing the bidding of the Master now, admittedly. But the Taskmaster ultimately succeeded in his goal, which was destroying Hulkamania. He just did it through unconventional means.
So Hogan's victory here, ultimately, in a final analysis, excuse me, was his greatest defeat. This was his undoing, and that was the Taskmaster playing the long game here.
Yes, I love it.
Oh my God, love it.
All right. We have made it through a Doomsday Cage match, you guys. So I feel like it's a good time for a break. And when we come back, probably the most famous / best Kevin Sullivan match. Stick with us.
I would agree.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Place to Be Nations, JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have over 24 podcasts available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We now offer them to you on 2 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we dive into topics running the gamut from today's WWE to the glory days of yesteryear and the ins and outs of the territory days. In addition to our full-length shows, we also deliver to you special pod blasts on topics old and new.
The Place to Be Nation Pop feed is a veritable treasure trove of great content. Offer tremendous shows covering the land of movies, television, life, comics, and sports, brought to you by the most knowledgeable and insightful folks in the podcast world.
You can find all these great shows, plus archives of our past podcasts from over the past 8 years as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth search projects, and much more. Be sure to support our site by using www.PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping. And we want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar, ProWrestlingOnly.com, and TheHistoryOfWrestling.com as well. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to be Nation Wrestling. Welcome back to Talk'n WCW. I am Tim Capel with Jennifer Smith, with Greg Phillips, and we are hanging out in the scaffold of the Doomsday Cage, about to get back to live action. But first, we're going to tell you about all of the other great shows you can check out on the Place to be Nation Wrestling feed. First up, on a Place to be Network special, Scott Criscuolo, Kelly Nelson, and Jake Williams live watch the Primetime Wrestling Ultimate Challenge from March 26, 1990. And on Jenny, your show, PTBN Extreme Three-Way Dance, you and John and JT continued your ECW adventure with 3 episodes of Hardcore TV from the month of August in 1994, moving right along. Anything you want to comment on the latest episode of Extreme Three-Way Dance?
It's an interesting mix of like boring like recaps of Hardcore Heaven, and then also the infamous Shane Douglas promo, and the birth of Extreme Championship Wrestling.
So that's kind of a mixed bag, but heavy stuff.
At some point, we'll have to do a Shane Douglas episode here so we can talk about getting our asses franchised.
Oh.
Yeah.
No
Dick
holds
Flair.
Dick Flair.
Dick Flair. No Holds Barred is back. Holy shit. In episode number 16, this is JT and Aaron revealing both of their complete lists for the GWWE project. So this is the greatest WWE TV and pay-per-view ever matches project. If you didn't get your ballot in, so sorry, it's too late. You had all year. But that wrapped up on midnight, New Year's Eve. And yeah, so both of them showing their hands on this episode of No Holds Barred with the complete reveal. That's a lot of matches, and I'm very impressed that that podcast is under 4 hours. So right. Great work by those two, and very interesting listen. On episode 31 of Row 1, Seat 1, Benzani and guest Dylan Hales counted down their top 10 indie wrestlers of the year 2019. Third episode of With This Ring, with hosts Ryan and Cindy discussing matches that have more famous rematches at WrestleMania. Interesting concept. Another Jenny special here, Jenny and the Gems, your 4th outing with Matt and Scott and Drew, back with, oh my goodness, WCW's All-Nighter 1995. One of the greatest pieces of television programming of all time. It really is.
Yeah, it was something. Their idea of a countdown is very interesting.
And non-existent.
Yes, and of course all of the hotel antics by the esteemed crew on that show.
Chris Cruz and the Vader mask.
Oh my god.
I cannot believe they didn't do more of those. It just...
Oh, and was this not appointment television to a child in this era? I mean,
absolutely.
I had to find a way to go to my uncle's house to stay up late to watch the WCW All-Nighter because it's my only chance to see a lot of these matches.
Yeah, Drew pointed that out, like we're kind of like spoiled with the network and all of these things that we get to see, but back then you didn't have access to a lot of this stuff. So a lot of this people were seeing for the first time, like little kids were seeing things like this for the first time, and just a kind of an amazing assortment of random matches like the Mulkeys for some reason.
Well, and that's the thing, because so much of it is a reflection of, you feel like, the host's sensibilities, and it's the type of thing that television just seems like it doesn't do anymore. They're like, oh, we need to fill this 6-hour block of time with literally anything. Mm-hmm. We don't care what it is. Let's just see who we can get and to, fill this time. And so you assemble this kind of motley crew of WCW announce team personalities, and of course they've got their production crew in this hotel room for however long it is, and they're like, all right, what are we going to come up with? We gotta talk about some matches, but we pretty much have free reign, so let's have some fun here. And I just miss that spirit of very limited quality control.
And Tony was eating it up. Like, Tony was in love with everybody in that room, and he was having the time of his life, just sitting around with fucking Gordon and Dusty and Mean Gene and Bobby, and just, like, you know, he was in his element. He was talking about wrestling with these legends. It was just amazing to watch.
God, they need to do these things again. Bring it back.
Bring it back.
We also have You Don't Know Billy Jack, number 11, with Drew and Jordan, watching the legendary 1994 showdown between Misawa and Kawada. Easy for me to say. Also, be sure to check out our Place We Nation Pop feed, our sister feed that is littered with great content, offering tremendous shows like the Hard Traveling Fanboys, which, Greg, you're one half of, Glenn Butler Podcast, Our Spectacular, The Year in Pop, Laugh In Theater, DC4U, Marvel Age, I am one quarter of, the Brother Sister Rewatch Podcast, and so much more. Subscribe today. And while you're at it, subscribe to Jennifer Smith's The Jenny Position, her own feed. And that is the home of Geek and Sassy, Talkin' Pop, Freak Out Driving, Telling Stories, The Journey Through Infinity, and more. So, Jenny, anything you want to plug in particular on your feed, my dear?
Well, we should have a new episode of The Journey Through Infinity with you and Justin and Scott, where we talk about Iron Man 2. That should be coming up soon. And also a new Talking Pop with a cherry poppin' new guest.
That's how we do it on Talking Pop.
Yeah, it is.
So that's going to be coming up soon. I'm looking forward to it.
Is that anything like the hit group Cherry Poppin' Daddies?
Daddies, yes, for sure.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Daddy. Yeah, I guess it has to be. And I will mention that before we get into another fun bit of business here, we have officially kicked off our 2020 stretch project for Place V Nation. That is determining the greatest WCW match ever. So we wrapped up greatest WWE pay-per-view and TV match. Now we've moved on to WCW, near and dear to our hearts. So I would expect this show to be a big component of that. We could have some fun here with it. You have all year to do your research, promote matches, build your list. Conversation and rules available at facebook.com/GWCW matches or on the Pro Wrestling Only message board. So stay tuned. More to come on that. Really just kicking it off. But another tournament that is in progress now on our social media pages is the greatest sitcom of all time. So we're just in round one. There's going to be 4 matches per day. Make sure to like our tournament page on Facebook or follow us on Twitter so that you do not miss a single one. Jenny, do you have some matches that we can take a look at live here on air?
Let's talk about today's matchups. We have 4 of them in the Dunder Mifflin region, round 1. Number 7, Parks and Recreation versus number 63, Melissa and Joey. Super easy for me, and 97% on Twitter, Parks and Rec.
I don't even know what Melissa and Joey is. I'll be honest. I know Wahoo and Terry, but
it's Melissa Joan Hart and Joey from Blossom.
Oh, Joey, not Buttafuoco, but
no.
That other guy.
Joey Lawrence?
Joey Lawrence, yeah.
Yes.
Whoa.
Whoa.
This is a slam dunk. It's gotta be Parks and Rec.
Yeah, sure does.
That's an easy one. All right, what else we got?
Number 26, Hannah Montana versus number 39, Silicon Valley.
Silicone.
Hey,
Silicon
now wait a
Valley.
minute.
That's
Silicon
a different
Valley
show.
versus Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I really like that show. So I voted for Silicon Valley.
Yeah, who are we kidding? Come on, Hannah Montana. I don't think so.
I've never seen either one, honestly, so I have to abstain.
Okay, that's how that works.
I might. Okay, I'll throw a sympathy vote to Silicon Valley.
There you go.
I'm sure it's good.
It is good.
We're unanimous.
Number 23, American Dad versus number 42, Superstore. Superstore I have loved. It is one of the only network sitcoms that I still watch. I just binged it the other day to get caught up. Is tremendous workplace comedy, so that was super easy pick for me. And I like American Dad, but
I've never seen Superstore. I have seen American Dad. I really like it. I think it's one of those shows that got better as it went along. I think the first season of American Dad is not that good, but as it goes along, it gets better and better. So I would give the vote to American Dad.
I have not seen Superstore, but I feel like I would enjoy it. I guess on that basis, I can't vote for it, but I'm not, I'm not all about American Dad or anything. So I don't know. Guess I'll have to abstain.
All right. Number 10, Veep versus number 58, Girl Meets World. Yeah. So after Veep ended is when I started watching it. So I binged all of Veep. So that's no question, 100% Veep all the way.
I was told to shut up and vote for Veep.
Yes, that is.
I've seen neither of these shows, but I was also told to shut up and vote for Veep, and so I voted for the other one.
Right.
Well,
that sounds right.
I have never seen Girl Meets World, and
I haven't either. I have the highest confidence that it's not any good, but
Right.
right. But I voted for it anyway. So.
Well, then
my vote meant nothing. My vote meant nothing.
This is true. You're in a solid Veep state. What else we have?
That's it. That's all.
That's it.
For the
Okay.
day. Yep.
Well, some somewhat lopsided matches there.
Allegedly.
What has been our closest matchup of the tournament? I'm curious. I don't even know if we have that data available to us at the moment, but I'm curious.
Simpsons and Fraggle Rock, I'm sure.
Well, Fraggle Rock was in many ways timeless. I mean,
in the sense that I don't remember anything about it, I suppose.
Well, I remember loving it. That's all I don't remember anything about it either. I just remember loving it. I remember when I was a kid, Fraggle Rock was, something along the lines of like, it's like God, family, and Fraggle Rock, and not in that order necessarily.
Right.
So.
It seems like the last couple of days there was something that was Sex in the City, I think, was neck and neck with something. I don't recall what it was up against.
Was it Herman's Head?
No.
Oh.
Two Broke Girls beat Blackish by like 10% on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I thought that was an unfortunate outcome. I thought.
Yep. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. That one, I think, won on Facebook and lost on Twitter to Rules of Engagement.
What?
Yeah.
I contributed to that because I do not like Kimmy Schmidt. I'm sorry. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but didn't like it. Tried it.
I haven't finished it, but I thought it was fine. I mean, there aren't a lot of sitcoms I'm all that high on. So in a lot of ways, this tournament is easier than others just because I'm
Grounded for Life. That's what Sex in the City was up against, and I think it won. It was 57% on Twitter, and I think it won on Facebook as well.
Oh yeah, the Donald
Grounded for Life. That had the guy that played the Rick on the ESPN commercials, right? Am I mistaken in that? I think that's right.
Logue.
No, I'm totally wrong then. That's not the guy I was thinking of at all.
Grounded for Life is funny, but it's I voted for Sex and the City.
Yeah. Grounded for Life is like the better version of that show we talked about forever.
Mama's Family.
No. Nothing's better than Mama's Family.
Which should win the tournament.
Should.
Handily. What was it The War at Home?
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
It's so bad.
The War at Home.
The War.
Yeah, which we talk about every episode, and I always forget what it's called.
Okay, go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of Blackish losing to two broke girls, for God's sake. Okay, I've only watched a few episodes of the Goldbergs, and I'm certain it's a good show, and it winning, that's fair. But 70% to 30% over the Boondocks.
Well, you gotta realize that
what is the breakdown of the people that are? I'm just saying.
70% white and 30%.
That's
black.
exactly what I was thinking. I'm glad you said it. I voted for the Boondocks. I've seen the Boondocks. I think it was brilliant. And I'm sure the Goldbergs is a good, solid show. But is the Goldbergs that different from like a million other sitcoms that have existed?
I think a lot of 80s nostalgia comes into play with that show.
Fair. Yeah, I'm sure it's
relatable.
And there are wrestlers that are on it, so it crosses over with our interests. Bill Goldberg, WCW champion, has appeared in the Goldbergs.
And they did a WrestleMania episode, I believe.
I think you're correct. I think so. Well, this was just an unfair matchup. 30 Rock demolished Fresh Off the Boat. But Fresh Off the Boat's pretty good, actually.
It is good.
But it just kind of rough matchup there.
Yeah, tough going. Okay. All right, so.
Oh, I found our closest matchup, by the way. Reba versus Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23.
What was the percentages on that?
51 to 49.
Ooh. Reba?
On Facebook. Reba won, 51 to 49.
Shit.
Very passionate on both sides, clearly, of that match.
3 people died, actually, debating that.
Yes, that's what I heard.
That match.
I'm a big Kristen Ritter fan, and she's great in that show. So, and Reba is also great, but
well, Reba gave us the song "Fancy," so I do feel like there is some loyalty over there.
That is true.
But Kristen Ritter gave us Jessica Jones, so
yeah.
Here's your one chance, Fancy.
Don't
let me down.
Don't let me down. And be sure not to forget to check out PlaceToBeNation.com each and every day. We have new voices and fresh takes bringing you articles on topics in the worlds of wrestling, sports, and pop culture, including Trent's SmackDown on Fox report this week in the NFL, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, this week in WWE by John Crow. Sorry, my screen froze.
Yeah.
Paulie's Perspective, Jason's DVD deep dive, and Ben's unpopular opinion. Don't forget about veteran columns like Glenn Butler's weekly walk around the web. And if you are doing online shopping over at Amazon.com, make sure you click on the Amazon banner on the right side of the Place to Be Nation homepage or use the link placetobenation.com/Amazon. That takes you right to Amazon, helps out Place to Be Nation with no cost to you.
/Amazon.
You like that?
That was a David Sunday like pronunciation. Aerosmith. Heavy on the Smith.
All right.
20 minutes into the live read. Yes. Here we go.
This is how we do it.
This is how we roll here, man. People know what they're getting from this show at this point.
I said it's like I said last night on a different podcast. We like to make the live reads a feature of our show.
I think it is a feature of our show.
We're so very good at it that I think people would be disappointed if we just did a very half-assed live read.
Perhaps
we believe in creating a full ass live read. In fact, so
We had a professional reading this whose computer didn't freeze in the middle of it. All right,
here, folks.
We'll fix it in post or not.
Probably not.
We're going to get back to our show now, proper, and talk about our last Kevin Sullivan match.
Boy, yeah.
This one, chosen by you, Greg Phillips, and you suggested before the break, it is Kevin Sullivan's greatest match of all time.
Yes, I would say that without reservation from what I've seen.
All right, we're going to see if that holds up to scrutiny here. What did you pick, sir?
I picked Chris Benoit versus the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan from the Great American Bash 1996 in a Falls Count Anywhere in the building match, I believe. I could be wrong on that stip, but I think that's what the stip was.
That is the stip.
And is part of a long-running rivalry between Chris Benoit and Kevin Sullivan that lasts, I believe, pretty much a calendar year and culminates in a retirement match. Actually, maybe the next month that he retires. I can't remember, but regardless.
It goes on another year. You're right.
Another year. Dungeon versus Horseman. It's got all the trappings of a heated rivalry as Chris Benoit has stepped into the role that was previously filled by Brian Pillman as Kevin Sullivan's chief rival. The Horsemen are fractured at this point. Arn and Rick have sided with Kevin Sullivan as a result of the previously mentioned alliance to end Hulkamania. And thus Chris Benoit could find himself on the outs with the Horsemen. We don't know. But right now he's got to handle his own business against a man that he's antagonized in the form of the Taskmaster.
Which is weird because he was never quite on the end with the Horsemen, if that makes sense. I mean, he had joined them late in 95 during that Reformation, but he was sort of in the background, not having a whole lot to do. It was
silent but violent.
Silent but violent, yeah. It was kind of the Arn and Flair show with Pillman as sort of that breakout star doing his loose cannon gimmick. As you said, he was the guy feuding with Kevin Sullivan, and they had the, I respect you, Booker Man, I quit match or respect match, I guess they called it, at Super Brawl, which led to Pillman's exit. So you've got Benoit stepping up into Pillman's place, and this is kind of his breakout role now as a single star here in WCW and the Horsemen. We might be looking at quite a different world had Pillman stuck around in WCW.
Yeah.
It occurs to me.
I hate to even take. I don't want to. And I always feel like I do. I always feel like I'm the Ric Flair on his podcast, this podcast, where it's always like, yeah, but he died of a drug overdose. but I feel like maybe Pillman's still with us if he re-signs with WCW and sticks around. Probably not because he had his problems, but I wonder what would have happened had he stuck around. And obviously our television would have been a lot different for sure. Mm-hmm. But it's funny how things work and the domino effects that can play out from one person's decision.
Plus, if Benoit doesn't feud with Sullivan,
Oh, geez. Oh, my God. I hadn't even thought about that. That's a great point.
Yep, I went there.
God. Well, that's going to tie into something I say at the end of this match, too.
Our second Chris Benoit match in as many shows here, so I don't know.
I think at this point, by the way, he was settling in, and there's a strong... Now, you guys know that Bret Hart is my everything. My first, my last, my everything. But at this point, Chris Benoit may very well have been the best wrestler in the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Position that he may have had for about the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So very possible he's at the peak of his abilities or getting close to it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And man, this match, Falls Count Anywhere, they don't even get into the ring until the finish. Mm-hmm. In fact, they don't even do a wrestling move until the finish. It's just that kind of match. They go all over the arena. I mean, in some ways, it's one of those walk and brawl style.
But it's so much more intense.
It is so much more intense, and just
they look like they're legit. And at times, I'm convinced they're legitimately punching each other.
I agree with that 100%. Like I had it in my notes, like it looks like they are seriously punching each other,
laying it in. Yep.
And you know what was refreshing about? Oh, go ahead, Jenny. I'm sorry.
No, and also it looks like they're totally slamming each other's head in the bathroom stall doors.
Right.
What's so refreshing to me about watching this match, every time I watch it, I'm taken by this. One of my pet peeves in wrestling, we've talked about this elsewhere, Tim, in chat groups and stuff, but one of my pet peeves in wrestling is when two guys hate each other and there's a blood feud and they like it's personal as it can get, and they wait for the other guy to come to the ring and the bell rings and they lock up.
Yeah, test a string.
Yep.
I freaking love this match and this style of match. And the reason why is they don't wait for the bell. They're not interested in waiting for the damn bell. They go out there and they start beating the shit out of each other as soon as they can. They get their hands on each other and they're throwing these hockey punches on each other that really pioneered that. I don't know about you. I had never seen that before in wrestling before Benoit and Sullivan's rivalry, where they're throwing simultaneous punches and nailing. They're not trading back and forth. They're just nailing each other at the same time as fast as they can and looking like they're legitimately punching each other in the face. And it's so damn intense. From the minute it starts, you feel like these guys freaking hate each other. And there's no love lost. There's no playing around. There's no playing to the crowd. Maybe at best you'll get a moment where one of them knocks the other one down and they take a moment to look around the audience or whatever. Benoit was great at that. He would knock a guy down and take just a moment to stop and look around at the crowd as the crowd's going crazy, and then he'd go back to work. And they go all over the damn arena. As Jenny mentioned, the most famous part of this match, of course, they brawl into the men's room of the arena. And in the men's room, they're fighting. The announcers are dying. The announcers are amazing here. Tony and Bobby are just dying right now. And Tony's talking about, he's going to put his head in the commode. Head to the commode.
But he doesn't, and I'm disappointed by that.
Yeah. I hadn't heard the term commode in a while.
Commode. That's such a great word.
So they're taking turns laying each other's heads in the stall doors and bashing each other's heads in.
God, yeah.
Stall doors. Ugh. And to their credit, by the way, because Jenny's saying that she wishes they had gone to the commode, I might have thrown up had they actually done that.
No, I wanted to see it so bad.
Oh, God, some dude was just peeing in there.
Yes.
And they're this close to having the head in, as Tony put it, the commode.
A public Baltimore commode. Can you imagine?
And in the middle of this brawl in the men's room, who should appear but a lady?
A lady.
And this gives us Dusty's immortal call. There's a lady! There's a lady in the men's restroom!
Okay.
She just stopped off
to get some relief. Hit it with the toilet paper.
I saw the lady in the men's room, okay? But did you see the man holding the baby in the men's room? I feel like there's a baby in the men's room is kind of better for this.
I would agree, and I would also point out just the way that there were so many people packed into that men's room, and they just kind of huddled in the back.
They were going crazy.
They were just going nuts.
And the man
You're just like, holy shit, people are now entering the men's room to watch a wrestling brawl, essentially.
I love that.
The man holding the baby appears to be holding him like baby Simba, almost as if he's offering the baby to Sullivan and Benoit to use as a weapon.
Holy shit!
Wow. And Benoit, and knowing Benoit, hell.
Oh God!
I mean, shit. But you got to be careful about that. But no, what a hell of a brawl! They go outside, and the first thing they do when they leave the men's room is Sullivan punches Benoit, and the dude falls down the stairs.
Yes.
And then Sullivan picks him up and throws him down another flight of stairs.
Oh my God, I love the stairs so
How do
much.
they?
Kevin
How do they
looks
not die?
badass. He looks amazing standing over him.
This is the most badass Kevin Sullivan's ever looked.
Oh my God, yes.
Because Benoit is of his size, like a similar size to him, so it doesn't feel to me like Rey Mysterio brawling with the Big Show or something. Yeah. It's like it feels like, okay, these two guys can kick each other's asses. And Sullivan's showing to me a side of him at that time that I hadn't seen, where he wasn't setting up to be backraked by Hulk Hogan. He was throwing damn punches right into the grill of Chris Benoit, a man that I knew by that point was a badass. So Benoit's taking these sick bumps down the stairs. They go over to the crowd. So Sullivan picks up Benoit and nuts him right on the nuts him. Anyway, drops his nuts on the guardrail, and then Benoit comes on the other side and drops Sullivan even harder on his nuts on the guardrail. These guys are just another great moment. So Benoit's laying upside down on the stairs, and Sullivan walks up and just stomps his testicles.
Yes. Oh my God.
Like Lennox. And God, such a great match. And they're beating the holy fire out of each other. Get into the ring. Benoit introduces a table to the proceedings.
Holy shit.
Huge table.
They put it in the corner. I can't remember which one goes splatting into the table. It doesn't break. No give at all to this table. Finally, Benoit sets the table up on the top rope, or one of them does, and laying across the top rope. Randy Anderson, thankfully, grabbing the leg of the table to stabilize it. Yes. Sullivan goes outside, climbs up, is punching on Benoit. Benoit recovers, picks up Sullivan, and takes him off of the table, which is set up on the top rope, with the damnedest superplex you're ever going to see in your life outside of a Bret Hart cage match, and takes him all the way over. Benoit, watch this finish again, folks. Benoit lands on the back of his neck and rolls onto his stomach. It is the most vicious-looking superplex imaginable. Waits a moment, covers the count, 1, 2, 3, and that crowd freaking erupts. Amazing match. One of the best brawls in WCW history.
I will never get over that table superplex spot.
Amazing.
I lost it. Like, I went insane for it. I've never seen anything like that. And he did it so perfectly. They were both just going for it, and I couldn't believe it. I was not ready for it.
The closest thing to that comes to mind immediately is Kurt Angle and Shane. Yeah, at King of the Ring 2001. But that wasn't a table. It was just a flimsy-ass board, essentially, that I can't believe supported both of them. But yeah, this is like one of those, it's like a proper table, it's not just a shitty plywood wrestling table. And God, that's the damnedest superplex. You wonder about the neck injuries and the CTE, of course. And you can kind of look back on this match as probably an indicator.
Yeah, probably not a great thing to get punched in the face repeatedly and then
probably not
fall on the top and back of your head from the top of a table. But nonetheless,
or to get your head slammed in the bathroom stall.
Yeah.
Benoit at this point was throwing himself into every match in an effort to get himself over, and by God, it was working. Crowd was buying what he was selling.
Yeah.
And
how could you not after that shit?
And, he also gets a little bit of help at the end because there's like but wait, there's more moment as Arn Anderson comes out to the ring. As you mentioned, Greg, he and Benoit, they'd been sort of on the outs. Benoit sort of fallen out of favor with the Horsemen potentially. But Anderson looks like he's going to stop Benoit from wearing out Sullivan even more. Says, no, I want a piece of him. Starts putting the boots to Sullivan to another enormous pop.
Yep.
So it's
the Horsemen are back.
Yep,
no more
reunited.
no more Kevin Sullivan promos where he talks about Rick and on.
Nope.
No, it was it's an amazing match, and I alluded to this during our break to you, Tim. I had a very and I find this unfortunately when I watch Chris Benoit matches again, I had a very unfortunate emotional reaction to this finish because it was so it was, as Jenny pointed out, it was so amazing. It was such a moment when you see the emotion of the crowd when Benoit stands up after that match going into it as a mid card wrestler, a low card wrestler, and getting that pop. It reminded me. It took me back to 1996. It took me back to seeing this show, and it took me back to Chris Benoit becoming one of my favorite wrestlers. You know, like right behind Benoit or Brett and Sting is my favorite wrestler at this time. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me, it was this wave of like elation at first when I saw this move. I was like, God damn right. And I was like, I was like 12 again. I was like, gosh, Chris Benoit is the best thing to hit wrestling in years. And then I hit this wave of sadness, and I was like, oh my gosh, because then it just was like, he was so freaking good, and it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't matter how good he was. That's unimportant when you put it in the context of what he did. However, it's hard to divorce myself from the fact that this guy was, as a pro wrestler, as good as I've ever seen at what he did in the ring. And it's, I don't know if this even makes sense, but wrestling is so unique in terms of the connection you feel to the performers because there is so much reality in it, and there is so much, you watch them every week for your entire childhood. And so there is still that lingering sadness of the fact that I don't feel like I can even fully embrace how great this guy was, because the more I watch him, even on this show with what we just watched last time and what we've watched this time, the more I watch him, the more convinced I become that he's got to be one of the 2 or 3 best in the ring wrestlers I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's
well, that's what makes it so frustrating and
Right.
so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I want to say I have kind of a different relationship with WCW Chris Benoit matches versus WWE Chris Benoit matches, but that almost seems like an excuse, and it seems like trying to say, well, he was a different person in WCW, and he was a different person at the end of his death than he was at a certain, and it's just, you can't really make those kind of conclusions. You can't say that, and I mean, I just think that's trying to put up a very flimsy defense for what was a very heinous thing that happened at the end of his life. And really, as you said, it doesn't matter how good of a wrestler he is. It's totally irrelevant. You can make all the excuses in the world, but it just doesn't change that fact that it's really, really hard to say, oh, but he's a great wrestler and
right.
we should celebrate his accomplishments, because God, that just is so hollow in the grand scheme of things.
But on the other hand, there's another guy involved in this match which is Kevin Sullivan, and he's outstanding here. A guy that I've been very critical of, as both of you know. I'm not a big Kevin Sullivan fan from his WCW run anyway, but he's great in this, and he's great every time these two guys wrestled. It's like something, whether it was genuine hatred, whether it was underlying, I don't know, but something about this rivalry brought out the very best in Kevin Sullivan, and he's there every step of the way with the guy that I just said was probably the best wrestler in the world at this point. So Sullivan keeps up the whole time, inflicts a massive amount of punishment on Benoit. And Taskmaster is coming off of feuding with Hulk Hogan, and he loses to Chris Benoit, which is a huge thing at the time. Sullivan was a star. He wasn't, I make fun of him, and obviously I never thought he was a threat to Hogan, but he had been feuding with Hogan for 2 years, and now he's coming out of that, and he's putting over Chris Benoit, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, you do kind of figure Benoit would get a rub off of something like that, and that's something I hadn't really thought of just in terms of that timing, but that's a great point.
Yeah, so Jenny, I know you were a big fan of this match too. What was your final impression of the bout?
It's funny because across all three of these matches, I'm trying to focus on Kevin, right? But there's something about him that makes his opponent more interesting too. Or his partner. So like with Cactus, there's that, and then with the huge Doomsday cage match, he's just one of many. And then in this, I feel like Benoit shines a little bit more. So it's just so funny that we all pick these matches of Kevin Sullivan's that are just, we end up talking about all the people around him more than him.
We end up talking about Z Gangster.
Yes. Maybe that's fair. I mean, maybe it is fair, but I still think he deserves our attention here. And I'm glad that we looked at these matches, especially that Benoit match, because he looked pretty amazing in it. He dominated it for the most part.
Oh, yeah. He stomped the man's balls.
Yeah. Threw him down the fucking stairs.
Yeah, I mean, geez. He looked like he looked like a true madman in that match in a way that he often didn't against Hogan.
He's just, there's something
he just did.
about him that's so relentless. Like,
yeah,
he just keeps going no matter what.
Similar to what you pointed out in the Nasty Boys match, that he had that the motor that like every time you think, all right, well, Sullivan's out of this match, here he comes and he's chopping some dude in the throat.
Yeah, he just like stomps. You know what I'm saying? He just like stomps towards the next thing he's gonna do, and he just fucking does it. It's just
I think that's a credit. I think that's a credit to him, really, and that he was such a good and consistent heel, Kevin Sullivan, pronouns pal, that most of the matches, I mean, the matches we've looked at, I think are sort of representative, especially of his late WCW career, in that it's not really his story. It's whoever the opponent that he's facing is. It's really their story.
Which is the point of a heel.
Yeah, exactly. And he's such an effective foil for them. It's probably our takeaway here. I did mean to ask you guys, what did you think of Sullivan's sort of, I don't know what to call it, sexy reverse flash cosplay in this match?
Hot.
I'm curious of how the timeline was affected.
Yes. Barry fucked it up, I'm sure.
I'm sure, yeah. You know what? We probably had a universe where Kevin Sullivan was world champion, and then Barry screwed it up.
You're right. Yep.
Or a universe where he remained married to Nancy and then fucked it up.
Almighty.
They forgot about that. Oh, my God.
They talk about he booked his own divorce. Well, he reverse flashed himself into his own divorce.
Now, is this there may be another alternate timeline that could have been created by another Flash event that involved him planning and covering up a series of crimes.
Oh, jeez.
I mean,
no.
I mean, for going there, but no, no,
it's called WWE Universe in Crisis.
Oh, Lord. This is what happens when you get comic book people to talk about wrestling.
You're right.
It is. Well, these two guys do have two more high-profile matches I'm looking at now. They met again at the Clash of the Champions, number 34. That was in January of 97.
Another great match.
That was another Falls Count Anywhere match, if you can believe it. And then they had the San Francisco Death Match.
What?
That was at Super Brawl 7. So in 1997, this was basically the career versus career match.
Yep.
That capped everything off.
Balsa wooden chair gets involved. I believe in that one.
It does, as does Miss Jacqueline.
Yep, Miss Jacqueline's involved. I believe Benoit does. He does a form of the flying headbutt, and I can't remember if there was a chair involved or a table involved or something, but there was some cool spot involving the flying headbutt.
Yeah, I'm picturing it now, and don't want to give it away, but I have it in my mind rather vividly. It's pretty funny.
Well, I'm jotting those down to watch because
for our next.
I just like I said, I had such a hard time picking my match that I just loved everything that I watched of his. So I'm sure I will just add those to the list.
Yeah, Hard Body Harrison still on the table.
I freaking loved that fucking match. It was stupid.
I came real close. Because, see, I thought for sure you were going to pick the Doomsday Cage match, and I was like, well, I'll go Hard Body Harrison.
Yeah.
Hard Body Harrison.
But you surprised me.
And I'm going to find a match with Kevin Sullivan versus Hard Work Bobby Walker. I'm sure it exists.
It probably does.
From Florida, I'm sure.
For a man that worked so hard, Bobby Walker really didn't have a very good career.
No, he did not. You know what? I'm not seeing him in the list of opponents here.
Oh, the dream match that never was.
No.
So, do you guys have a new appreciation for Kevin Sullivan? Or are you still kind of meh?
Oh, well,
kind of meh.
Let me dispel a myth. I think I always had a healthy appreciation for Kevin Sullivan. He it's sort of similar to you, Jenny. He was that guy who, when I got back into wrestling, he was out. Like, I think he made appearances here and there, just as a personality, but he was no longer wrestling. After that 97 San Francisco death match, spoiler alert, that was the end of his career. And for the most part, they stuck to that stipulation. So basically, when I got into Chris Benoit, I would hear about, you gotta check out his feud with Kevin Sullivan. And I would just hear over and over, yeah, these wild matches with Kevin Sullivan. And I'm like, who the hell is Kevin Sullivan? And so I just had this image in my head, like he had been built up so much, right? Like he had to be this huge. How could I have never heard of this guy before? He sounds like, such a legendary performer, and now his career is over. And when I finally saw like my first Kevin Sullivan match, which was one of those matches against Benoit, I was like, wait, this is Kevin Sullivan? And he did kind of suck me in, but it was like the legend didn't really live up to the hype, but at the same time, I gained a different sort of appreciation for him, just because those matches were so good. Mm-hmm. And I've always found him a fascinating character in wrestling, especially doing that deep dive a couple years ago that I did into the championship wrestling, the Florida Championship Wrestling stuff, which is, my God, that he has that feud with Dusty Rhodes. He throws ink in the eyes of his kayfabe sister, and it's just that's what they need to get on the network, really.
Yeah, it is.
Some FCW stuff, because that's one of the territories that I think people don't have a lot of familiarity with. That would be revelatory today.
So I've learned that at his best, Kevin Sullivan is really good. Like I had not seen the Nasty Boys match until this episode. Excellent, really great match. So it did expose me to that, and I'd seen him with Cactus before, and I'd seen some of his matches with of course the Benoit series is phenomenal, always has been. But I think the reason perhaps for my disconnect on Sullivan versus the two of you is I was watching WCW throughout 94 and 95, and I would challenge people, if you were watching WCW in 94 and 95, it was challenging to have any kind of respect for Kevin Sullivan because I cannot express to you how many times I got tired of seeing Hulk Hogan and Kevin Sullivan have some sort of dramatic showdown that didn't lead anywhere. It went on forever. And again, like I mentioned earlier, he never was a threat to Hogan. Hogan never was really at any disadvantage in their feud. And yet it went on forever and a day. Every time I thought it was over, it's like, well, now Kevin Sullivan's gone, but now he's the Taskmaster. Right. And he's got horns on his head for some reason. And
Yes.
and he's working and he's got a mystical fountain that is of varying temperatures. But
not hot.
But not hot, brother. God damn it. It's not hot, brother. And why was it supposed to be Hulk hot Hulk? We don't know, but just we'll go with it. The Giant was revealed, and he was Andre the Giant's son for some reason. And they had a monster truck duel, and Kevin Sullivan's there the whole time. Why is he still there?
Well, the
But
Yeti.
never leaves.
Yeti!
The Yeti is brought out. The Loch Ness Monster is brought out.
Mm-hmm.
And all through it, Kevin Sullivan is still there trying his damnedest to end Hulkamania. At a certain point, you got to throw in the towel. You got to realize it's not going to happen. Although, as we discovered in this episode, it worked.
It did work.
So
See?
maybe I was wrong. Maybe
You were wrong.
Greg was one of these impatient millennials. Give things a chance to play out. I should have let it play out, and I should have realized that Kevin Sullivan was a mastermind, that Kevin Sullivan was the man that did what so many had failed to do before, what Bobby Heenan couldn't do, what Jimmy Hart couldn't do, what Slick couldn't do, what
Ric Flair couldn't do.
Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect couldn't do, what nobody could do before him. He destroyed Hulkamania by rotting it from the inside out, by injecting it with a lethal dose of poison.
See, I think that's what appeals to me with Kevin Sullivan is that he is on a different level. You know, he's on the long game. He's
playing 12-dimensional chess to our check.
Like he's just 8 steps ahead of everybody else.
Do you think that the Taskmaster and Mr. McMahon perhaps met up at some point to compare plans and strategies?
Oh,
I would not be surprised.
I mean, think about it. Mr. McMahon's years-long plan to unravel Stone Cold paid off when Austin eventually turned and joined Mr. McMahon.
Right.
Similarly, Kevin Sullivan's plan paid off when the great Hulk Hogan was corrupted.
I submit that McMahon learned from Sullivan.
That's a great point. And then took it as a challenge to become even more evil than the satanic Kevin Sullivan. Thus culminating in the greatest promo of our lives, "Life sucks and then you die."
Then you die.
With his pupils actually in the middle of the promo vanishing and turning into black dots.
Well, clearly, the corporate ministry and the reveal of the higher power was very much borrowing from and influenced by the sensibilities of Kevin Sullivan.
Arguably should have been Kevin Sullivan until the day of the show. This is what I like to think happened. The day of the show, Kevin Sullivan is brought in to become the higher power. McMahon fires him on the spot and says, "Not evil enough," and decides that if you wanted something done yourself, damn it, you better do it yourself. And he comes out and it's him all along. So what a great line of things that happened, all tying back to the genius of Kevin Sullivan.
Love him, and just the puppet master behind the scenes.
So by proxy, if you trace the birth of the Attitude Era to the birth of the NWO, which I think you can you not then attribute all of the success of WCW and by proxy the WWF to Kevin Sullivan?
Thank you and good night. He he's beyond our understanding of booking.
I thought I had it all figured out when I saw Kevin Nash's charts about the draws of the era. But I've realized that even Nash didn't have all the data.
Right.
No.
And Nash is like genius, right? He's like super
Oh,
smart
absolutely.
too, right?
Yeah.
Not Kevin Sullivan level genius.
No, of course. Well, we know that now. We didn't know that at the time. And going back even further, Kevin Sullivan was Kevin Nash's manager at one time as the great wizard who was managing Oz.
That's
in
right.
1991. So he goes back even further. The great politician, the great thinker Kevin Nash learned under the tutelage of the Task/Games Master, and the proof is in the doll/pudding.
Kevin Nash was the star on the stage of fools being managed by the master puppeteer, Kevin Sullivan.
Amen.
Wordsworth couldn't have said it any better.
So I'm glad you all see it my way now. And I feel good about it. I'm glad.
We've all learned a lot this day.
Yes, we have. So I think that just means that I think it's Greg's turn to pick our next topic.
I feel like it might be Tim. Oh, so the last episode was WCW Bret Hart, right? And that was mine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so maybe it is Tim's. Okay.
So it's me. It's me. And you know what? It's going to be DDP.
There we go.
Oh, shit.
That's timely. We're going to see DDP back in the ring on AEW next week.
Yep.
So.
I already know which episode. I already know which match I'm going to choose.
Do you?
Yep.
Oh, man. Look at you.
I'm
already doing some DDP research here? Wow. Is he on the short list, perhaps?
I'm curious. There's so many different directions you could go with DDP. You could go with the Macho Man series. You could go with the Sting series. You could go with Goldberg, certainly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of options on the table for Diamond.
You could even look at the Triad if you want some heel
DDP.
Yeah.
Which could include... could continue our trend of Chris Benoit matches.
We very much could. They had quite a series of matches, singles and tags. You could go early DDP. Look at some of the Johnny B. Bad stuff.
Yup.
Max Muscle is his accomplice.
So we think we know which direction Jenny is leaning, which I like. I'd like to see some early DDP representation because he was around for so long.
And I'm curious. I've been curious about doing a Johnny B. Bad episode because I want to find out if the kiss that don't miss ever missed. Because I feel like it did.
Yeah.
When we do a Johnny B. Bad episode, I already know which match I'm going to choose then, too. So.
Oh. Wow.
Right, well, it's settled then. Diamond Dallas Page is the subject I'm choosing for our next Talk'n WCW. But until then,
good God,
I am Tim Capel. Actually, we should do plugs, shouldn't we?
Yeah, let's plug some shit.
We should at least social media. I mean, we kind of talk podcast, but let's I'm gonna call an audible here and say, Greg Phillips, what social medias would you like to promote if you would like to promote any social medias?
I would like to promote my Twitter handle, my Twitter account, whatever you want to call it. It's gphillips8652, and I tweet about comic books, wrestling. Well, not so much comic books, but some comic books and wrestling and sports and assorted things. And recently, you can find me sort of remembering to share my podcast again, so that exists. And we're talking about Arrow this month, and then. Nothing at all, but Arrow is what we're talking about, and also I have I don't want people to know my Facebook page necessarily, but I do want people to know about the Place to Be Nation Comics Facebook page where they can go and talk about a variety of things if they so choose.
Very good, Jennifer. Any podcasts we haven't talked about already that you would like to plug or your social media presence?
Well, there should be a new episode of Geek and Sassy out by now, and that is our most recent reads, streams, and downloads, which there should be a lot of, considering that we both watched a shit ton of stuff during the holiday season. You can find me on Twitter at Jenny Position, and my Facebook page is The Jenny Position. You can leave me a review there if you would like to. 5 stars only, though.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter. I am at Cyke68, CYKE68, and I'm going to try to get better about just having a Twitter presence and activity, I guess, going into this new year. You know how it is, it ebbs and flows. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this edition of Talk'n WCW. For Jennifer Smith, for Greg Phillips, I am Tim Capel, and we will catch you next month talking some Diamond Dallas Page. Looking forward to it.